Hi there, this is Solitude from Solitude Films, and welcome to a very special random review. And today's random review is of John Sayles' masterpiece from 1987, Matewan, which has finally had a proper release. This is Criterion Collection, spine number 999, or the one before Godzilla. This is one of the greatest American films of the 80s by the greatest American screenwriter of the last 40 years and one of the greatest American filmmakers of the last 40 years. He's probably the most underrated director in history, probably because of the subject matter of his films, his somewhat left-leaning politics of his films, but hopefully this release will lead to more releases of his work and more people get to see how fantastic his films are. So this film is about the Matewan massacre of 1920 in West Virginia, which led to the coal mining wars of the 20s. And this was kind of the first event that sparked that off. As Sayles says himself, he could have done the sequel, which would have been the full-blown mining wars. So it's a simple tale of trying to get a union for these miners, which obviously the company doesn't want, and they bring in goons played by Gordon Clapp and Kevin Tighe, who are John Sayles regulars. The Clapp goes back to Return of Secaucus 7, and Chris Cooper in his first film role. He had done a lot of theatre, as John Sayles likes theatre actors. As he says, the job of a director is not to teach actors how to act. And Chris Cooper is just luminous in this role, as the union man who tries to get these miners to go down the road of non-violence. Whereas obviously scabs are brought in, there's African American miners from Alabama who get brought in, there's Italian miners who get brought in, and the local miners at first are against them and try and beat them up and want to kill them. But Joe Keenahan, Chris Cooper's character, persuades them they should actually join up and form a union, and so no coal is mined without a union man doing it. But as usual, the wheels of kind of relief funds by the union move very slowly, so the locals get more and more frustrated. They are put upon more and more by the union busters. There's a spy amongst their ranks. Most of the characters in this film are actually based on real people. James Earl Jones gives a wonderful performance as a miner called Johnson, who's known as Few Clothes, who was actually a real guy who fought in the Spanish Civil War, and came back to America and did mining. He fought in Cuba as well. Bob Gunton turns up, the warden from Shawshank Redemption. He turns up as C. Lively, again one of his first performances. Mary McDonnell is fantastic. She would later appear in another Sayles masterpiece, Passion Fish, in 1993. So you have these people that obviously the mine is such a big thing for them. The women have had husbands who died in the mine. You also have this young idealistic preacher who kind of Joe takes under his wing, and he kind of preaches a bit of union stuff at the church. John Sayles has a hilarious cameo as a fire and brimstone, anti-union, anti-Bolshevik, anti-socialist preacher. He kind of sits in the shadows while the boy preacher's kind of preaching kind of union stuff. The film was made for an estimated 3.6 million, but it looks absolutely beautiful. Haskell Wexler, who Sayles admired from his film Medium Cool, which he wrote and directed and obviously shot, and the film just looks absolutely beautiful. It's got that kind of old photograph feel. The period detail, the production design is just spot on. They didn't actually shoot it in Matewan because his Sayles and his long-term producer partner Maggie Renzi said when they went to Matewan there was still a kind of dark, brooding feeling about the town. So they went to another little town in West Virginia. There's a wonderful documentary on the effect that shooting Matewan in West Virginia actually had, because before John Sayles shot there was no West Virginia film industry, and after he shot there there's more and more funding. People were inspired to actually start making films and documentaries in the West Virginia area. It's actually quite a wonderful little documentary. There's another 2 making of documentaries that are wonderful, and there's also a fantastic Sayles and Haskell Wexler commentary from 2013 before Wexler died, which is essential, because I would say even if you don't like the film, even if you don't like the politics of the film, you should listen to Sayles' commentary, because he literally tells us how to make a low budget film. His commentaries are right up there with Cronenberg and Michael Mann and John McTiernan as far as the nuts and bolts of actually how to make a film. And in Sayles' case, it's how to make a film with literally hardly any money. I mean, Sayles, the kind of genesis for Matewan, Sayles is also a novelist. He's just a all-round smarty pants, really. He wrote a book called Union Jews, and essentially there was a chapter about it, about Matewan in that. So he was apparently backpacking and hitchhiking round West Virginia and was kind of learning more and more about the massacre. And he and Maggie Renzi went to West Virginia and learned more and more about it. And again, that's another great thing about Sayles. He involves the local community, so he hires people as extras. He gets technicians from the local area, and he really gives the local area a boost, and this is what he did in West Virginia. I mean, the story kind of works also as a western, because there's obviously this, it leads up to the shootout at the end, and again when it happens it's short, it's sharp, it's random, it's not, beautifully Hollywood choreographed. It's violence as violence tends to be, which is ugly and rough, and and at the end you don't really know which side the dead bodies were on. It's, you know, it's just kind of, it's beautifully done, like the whole film is beautifully done. The music by Mason Daring, who has done about 18 John Sayles films. There's a nice piece on the Criterion collection on him as well, because I didn't actually realise he started out as a lawyer, but his love was really music, so he started out doing the legal stuff for John Sayles' early films, but then he became the main composer. So he actually makes an appearance, because there's a beautiful scene where there's a couple of beautiful scenes. Well, there's countless beautiful scenes, but there's a couple of beautiful scenes that really focuses on the kind of music of each group of people and as they come together. So Mason Daring is on acoustic guitar in a couple of scenes, and he made a conscious decision with Sayles of not having any banjo in the film, because that kind of has negative connotations, if we've all seen Deliverance. So there's no banjo, there's harmonica and dobro and acoustic guitar, and the score is beautiful. There's actually a kind of couple of mining songs, which the first time I saw it years ago, I just assumed they were kind of traditional mining songs, but they were actually written by Sayles and Mason Daring. Because again, why have to pay money to get the copyright to use a song in a film, whereas you can just write a song yourself? Which is another little hint if you want to save money if you're making a low budget film. It's a stunningly well made film, beautifully acted. I mean, Sayles believes in less is more as far as acting style. David Strathairn, again, who had become one of Sayles' regulars. He'd appeared in Brother from Another Planet, for example. Is wonderful as Sid Hatfield, the sheriff from one of the Hatfield McCoys. Again, he was a real guy. Because he doesn't say much. You don't really know which way he's going to go. I mean, you could argue that perhaps Gordon Clapp and Kevin Tighe as the Union Busters, as the heavies, are perhaps a little cartoonish, but then Sayles says that the real Union Busters kind of intercepted a Red Cross delivery of milk for the strikers' kids, and they actually put kerosene into the milk. So as he said, he's actually lightened them up from what the stuff that they actually did during this time. Again, Sayles just likes talking about things that people don't really know about. And this part of not just West Virginian history, but American history. And then that what leading to the coal mine war, essentially, in the 20s. Again, from a Hollywood blockbuster standpoint, you know, Sayles films are never going to be that. Just because he wants you to think about things. He wants you to actually also learn something, but his films are never preachy, they're never, you know, overtly ram it down your throat political. Because, I mean, the basis of this film is, you know, we're all one union, we're all the same, and why can't we actually just get on and work together? And again, that might seem naive, or that might seem overly simplistic. But again, if you're not into the politics of it, it still works as essentially a modern day Western. It's got all the trappings of a modern day Western. It's heartbreaking, it's moving. It's, again, it's one of the greatest films of the 80s. It's one of the greatest films of all time. It's now 32 years old, and we're now just getting it being released on Criterion and getting the exposure that it deserves. That's just the inside of the Criterion edition. I mean, actually, when I got it through my letterbox, it was actually quite moving to have it after all these years. Again, it was a film that I first saw late at night in BBC Two, and I had it on VHS, recorded. There's also an essay, All We Got in Common. So I had it illegally copied off the television, and of course, without realising that would be the best copy I would actually ever have. Until now, there's been some kind of dodgy copy DVDs available of it, but now finally Criterion did the honourable thing and released it on Blu-ray, and it just looks stunning, and I really hope that people will buy a copy, will blind buy it even though they don't know what it's about, and hopefully they'll enjoy it and they'll want to seek out more John Sayles films, which will hopefully lead to City of Hope, which isn't even available on DVD, Men with Guns, Passion Fish, Lone Star, getting more, or getting Blu-ray releases, or even DVD releases would be a start. Because I know I'm biased, and I do tend to bang on about John Sayles, but his films are important and informative and entertaining. Like I said, he's the best screenwriter of the last 40 years in America. Please leave comments below if you can name somebody who's actually better as a screenwriter in the last 40 years. His ear for dialogue is just stunning, because he puts the work in as far as what makes humans tick. And he's just a fantastic filmmaker. But unfortunately, because of his the content of his films, doesn't tend to get hundreds of millions of dollars thrown his way, which is a shame, but that's the price you pay for being an artist with integrity, and with a particular agenda of the kind of films you want to make. So thanks very much for watching this random review, even though it's a very special review, and I'm sure most of you knew it was coming as soon as the amazing news happened that Matewan was actually getting a Criterion release. And hopefully this is the first of many. Hopefully the Criterion edition of Matewan sells really well. And there was a recent video of John Sayles in the Criterion cupboard picking out some films, so hopefully this is just the beginning of a beautiful relationship between John Sayles and Criterion. Maybe a box set one day, that would be then I would weep like a small child if that ever happened. So thanks very much for watching. Please leave comments below if you've seen Matewan and what you thought of it, and hopefully we'll see you again for more random reviews. This is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, saying thank you very much for watching, and farewell.